Yeah, this will be an interesting matchup. So Tim Feng Wan, friend of the stream, sleeper through drafts of Pro Tours,
Yes.
is going to be back on the stream here, and will be playing his patented Azorius Lotus control deck. And David Lee going to be playing Greasefang, which is a deck that has kind of popped back up into existence after the Amalia ban as kind of a place to put your Abzan cards.
Yeah, so is this really Greasefang?
This is going to be a Greasefang deck. So you wind up having...
Okay, I see the Parhelion. Okay.
Yeah, so we have the optimal play here of turn one land go, turn two Rafine's Informant, discard the Parhelion, and then turn three land Greasefang would be ideal. It won't immediately kill Tingfang, but it will put Tingfang down to basically single-digit life totals.
Yes. So, Tingfang here playing Azorius Lotus Control, which is basically, your typical bullet control this, but with Lotus Field and Strict Proctor.
Yeah, so Thoughtseize here from David Lee is going to be a pretty powerful play, as this is going to be able to strip away any sort of interaction that Tim Feng has, like this Tail's End, which is normally used to counteract the Lotus Field trigger, but has some splash damage here, as it can just counter spell a Greasefang as a legendary spell.
Oh yeah, I mean, also you see the main board sell the wreckage here. Oh, David Lee is smiling, like, doesn't know what to do, because March of Otherworldly Lights as well is pretty hard to... It's pretty hard to... It's a pretty tough decision in general, honestly.
I mean, right here, you probably, if you have the Greasefang, you are taking the Tail's End. If you don't have the Greasefang, you are taking one of the other cards. And so the Wandering Emperor is the one that winds up getting hit, and then David's just going to be able to clear the way and swing for three.
Oh yeah. We have Eric out here adjusting the camera so David's girlfriend could be in the camera as well. It's showing that David has a GF buff. Well, Tingfang is fighting basically a 1v2 right now.
David just has a companion.
Oh yeah, the companion. Where's the companion token at?
But Tim Fang just going to be playing at Thespian stage. And David is just going to be... Oh, it looks like he forgot to end step the Grizzly Salvage there.
Oh.
But has Grizzly Salvage, has Cash Grab, so multiple ways to kind of flood things into your graveyard while trying to find your Greasefang. But at this point in time, David's just going to settle for a swing for three and potentially just wait to do both next turn.
Wait, what's that card called?
A Grizzly Salvage. It's a
Salvage.
Return to Ravnica specialty. It is instant speed, one of each Golgari mana. You mill 5, or you reveal 5. You put a creature or a land from your from among them into your hand, and then the rest in your graveyard. So this is the enabler for the Abzan Greasefang deck.
I'm sorry to see Esper Greasefang. I just thought that was the stock list, but...
No, that's just a rune special.
Yeah.
As we see double Grizzly Salvage here. We reveal the second Parhelion and an Astika's Chariot. We did find a Greasefang off of one of those. Now we have a second one, which reveals a bunch of lands and a Rafine's Informant as possible hits. It's just going to wind up taking one of the lands. And now, David, if you have land, Thoughtseize, any sort of interaction here to protect this Greasefang, you go for it. Otherwise, you're just throwing it out and hoping Tingfang has no interaction.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have... Oh, actually, yeah.
We knew
about the march. We knew about the march. So, Greasefang is going to get marched out of here. So... What do we exile with it? Oh no, you don't have to. You
don't have to, because Tingfang just has all the mana.
Yeah, it's your Hardcast. Might as well. So we're gonna pass go now for David here. Tingfang go down to 11, and we're gonna play a clear one of the pathways and pass.
Yes, this is the Hanging Gate pathway on the flip side for the blue side, which is some sort of water pathway. But David Lee's backup plan for the Abzan Greasefang deck isn't necessarily as good as the Esper version, where you kind of have like multiple 2-drops like Evangel and these other cards that you can kind of swing in with. You're a little bit more all-in with the combo, unless you're packing Sentinel of the Lost City, which is something you're very familiar with. And we also knew about this Tails in here, the rarer mode to counteract a legendary spell.
Recast?
So that's just going to be
2-mana
counterspell. Basically counterspell and Pioneer. But it's also just going to mean that David's backup plan is swinging for 3 every single turn. Without an Asika's Chariot or anything else to pressure the board, Tingfang is just one removal spell away from being so stable.
Yeah, a pretty classic line we always hear on camera here is, "I'm so stable." Like, Tingray will get to the point where he's down to 1 health, 2 health, and stabilizes, wins the game. So we're gonna Impulse here. I think that's the card, right?
Yeah, so
Impulse.
looking at the top four, we're going to wind up taking one and putting the rest back on the bottom. So Tin Fang is going to have a pick of the litter. You pulled up Settle the Wreckage. We know that's in hand, so we have a way to deal with the Rafine's Informant plan. Even if we resolve a third Greasefang or we can't stay away, get a Greasefang back from our graveyard, we have a way to deal with the Parhelion and the Angel tokens from Tin Fang's side. So Tin Fang is looking pretty solid right here. The only thing you have to do is maybe find spot removal for this Informant so you can save the board wipe for a Greasefang.
Tinkfing's facial expression is not really happy with the choices he had here. Oh, but like also too, this is pretty risky as well because you're putting yourself in not having potentially the mana to even cast a Sell the Wreckage here, which you're probably not too worried about. With the because I don't think you're dying next turn, but I don't think Mr. Tinkfing one's so stable as of right now.
I think you're basically one spell away. Like if you have a Get Lost in Tin Fang's hand, you deal with this. You deal with the Rafine's Informant, or you deal with the follow-up Greasefang, and then you wind up losing 3 life. You go down to 5, but you are a control deck. You find a Teferi, you find a Wandering Emperor, you find one of your things, and you are able to just kind of stabilize from there. We see Settle the Wreckage. I think that might be a Get Lost underneath it, and I think that's a March of Otherworldly Light in Tin Fang's hand. So Tin Fang has an answer currently to the Rafine's Informant, but I think what he's really considering here, oh sorry, that's a Lotus Field right there. Okay. So what he might be considering here is, do I play the Lotus Field, sack my lands, and then only keep up the one colored source that I have and the double Thespian stage, or do I just pass the turn here and have removal for whatever Dave is potentially going to present?
Dave's on top 2 here. Do another one of those cards where you're gonna mill, what, 4 or 5?
No, it's mill 5, Grizzly Salvage, but we're just gonna find land, Grizzly Salvage, Bitter Triumph. So no more Greasefangs. Just gonna put a land into our hand because we can't take spells.
So we take a land here. Off a little bit of a ramp here, but now we're gonna draw for turn. Still can't really tell what David drew, but you're most likely just gonna go to combat and just swing here anyway. Maybe try battle removal and then play your hand out here, but
oh, we have Lively Dirge. So this is going to be used with its spree cost. We are most likely going to be looking for 2 things to put in our graveyard and then returning creatures of combined mana cost up to 4 to bring back Greasefang. Okay, so since we have the Greasefang in our graveyard, we are just going to be utilizing the one part of it. So that's just going to be bringing back creatures of mana cost 4 total. So that's just the 3 from the Greasefang. And that is going to meet that Get Lost that we know Tin Fang had in hand. So we have 2 map tokens, but now we're in a little bit of a dangerous scenario because, like we mentioned, you need 1 more removal spell from Tin Fang because if we crack a map on this Rafine's Informant, get it to 4 power, it's a 2-turn clock.
oh yeah, I mean, it's a really rough decision here because David doesn't know what's in Tinkfing's hand here, but we are only showing a Thespian stage, but I think there's a March Overly Light where you exile, what, with 2 white cards?
You still got to tap a white to use that, though.
Oh, you do, yeah. So shields are all down. Shields all down right now for Tinkfing.
Yeah, so Tinkfing's hand looks like it's Lotus Field, March of Otherworldly Light, Settle the Wreckage. So we have in Tinkfing's hand a way to answer Greasefang coming back and Rafine's Informant from David. But ooh, we wind up exploring a Sky Sovereign into the graveyard too. So now there's 3 targets for Greasefang. This Rafine's Informant goes at the 4 power. We are going to wind up taking a hit down to 4. So Tin Fang is now priced into keeping removal up, period, or losing the game.
We're not looking too hot here. I'm trying to think of the possible top picks potentially from Tinkfing to get you out of the situation.
I mean, right now you have Settle the Wreckage and you
Ooh,
have...
Strict Proctor.
Okay, Strict Proctor is a blocker. And you also have Settle the Wreckage. So you have to consider, okay, do I march this? Do I keep up my Settle the Wreckage? The big thing that's paining Tin Fang right now is the fact that he only has 1 white source. So he would have to copy the white source with a Thespian stage in order to actually... I guess that the pathway is on the white side. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to play the Strict Proctor that way. Okay, so you have the two white available for the Settle the Wreckage.
Yeah.
But this stifles the trigger from the Lotus Field because he just declines to pay 2 from the Strict Proctor. So this is basically, we are only keeping up white mana for our March of Otherworldly Light to deal with the Rafine's Informant. If we wind up having a Greasefang in addition to this, we're just dead.
I mean, David here, all comes down to Greasefang off the top here, basically.
Or a Lively Dirge,
Yeah.
or a Can't Stay Away, or a way to
A
reanimate
bit,
the
but
Greasefang.
I don't think it's a high. I mean, there's a high chance of hitting it since we are milling here, and
Hey, look, there's the high chance.
okay, so this is a Lively Dirge. It's gonna bring back the Greasefang here.
So now Tin Fang has to think, I need to march, pay 2, and exile. Oh no, Tin Fang's just going to let this happen. Because Tin Fang needs to march this Greasefang or it's lethal.
I think Tin Fang's just thinking, while the hands are still on the cards here before combat.
So he's going to... Is he going to let the attack trigger go? Okay, so Tin Fang's just dead.
So game number 1, gonna go to David Lee on this Esper Greasefang. Was it
Abzan
Greasefang? Sorry about that. And Tin Fang now going down the game here, but post board, I think he's gonna be pretty all right.
I mean, post board as Tin Fang, you are basically going up on all of your graveyard hate. You are going to be doing something like Rest in Peace. If you have, I don't think you're running Unlicensed Source in Tin Fang's deck, but you're playing Rest in Peace, you're playing Exile or Removal, you have March of Otherworldly Light. If you have any extra copies of that, you're probably putting those into your deck. I know that Tin Fang also likes playing Blessed Alliance as a card to kind of get somebody on an attack trigger. That might not be the greatest thing in the world from his deck, because if you have a Greasefang, it's not attacking, the Parhelion is, and you could just sack the Parhelion to get Greasefang again the next turn. So I think what you're really looking for are things like temporary lockdown.
Oh, yeah.
Because that basically is lights out for the Greasefang deck. It hits everything except for Greasefang and the vehicles. So it basically turns them into a really clunky mid-range deck.
Oh yeah, I mean, also we can probably maybe see some potential. I actually don't know. I don't think Hiding's gonna be that amazing in this matchup here, since a lot of these are triggers happening, and you're not really gonna have much come in.
David, so the addition of Cash Grab to the Greasefang list means that you now have anywhere between 5 and 8 instant speed mill spells. So before you had to play Vessel of Nascency. So you had to play that and then wait until your opponent's turn to pop it. But that meant if you played against like a High Noon or Deafening Silence type effect, you weren't really able to kind of multi-spell in the turn with your Vessel on board. So this time around, you're able to, at instant speed, pay 2 mana, mill 4 for Cash Grab, 5 for Grizzly Salvage, really dig through your deck to find your Greasefang, your missing combo piece to put in your graveyard, and kind of be very set up well for that. So High Noon and these kinds of silence effects, the Greasefang deck might actually be bringing those in from David's side, specifically the card Silence. Against a control deck, you upkeep Silence, they either counter the Silence or they waste their counter spell as you Greasefang.
I mean, yeah. Also, too, like what I'm really curious about is Since I have an old list of Tin Fang, is I wonder if he's still on the one of mainboard Farewell, which is gonna be pretty good into this matchup.
Yeah, normally you would think that a 6 mana board wipe that also exiles graveyards and everything would be too slow against a combo-oriented deck like Greasefang, but Tin Fang's list is a Lotus Field combo deck at its core with a control shell. So you have Discontinuity, which is also a great way to stop a Greasefang combo from happening, but you have Discontinuity to stifle your own Lotus Field trigger, so then you can jump the curve to 6 mana on turn 4, and then all of a sudden, if that puts David on, if I don't turn 3 Greasefang, I will lose.
Oh yeah. So, I mean, it's very exciting here since Tin Fang will be on the play now, because I think he was on the draw last game. So we're gonna see potentially a turn 2 Lotus Field would be pretty. Turn 3 Lotus Field would be pretty great with Strict Proctor.
I would say we could have Strict Proctor. I mean, the tails end is pulling double duty like we saw in game number 1, being able to counter Greasefang and stifle your own Lotus Field trigger, and then we have Discontinuity. So we have a ton of different ways from Tin Fang's deck. It is just a 60-card control deck. It's not a Yorion kind of control deck like we've seen other Azorius control decks play. So he's able to find those cards somewhat consistently. We saw cards like Impulse to really help dig through that, so you can do that on turn 2 and set yourself up to have this accelerated mana curve, which is what you need to do when you're playing against a deck that can combo you on turn 3 and have you dead by turn 4.
Oh yeah, I mean, also you can see like see how Tin Fang's looking right now. He's all business tonight. This man is fully in preparation for the RC. Look at him go, picking up the opponent's deck and making sure that he's all business tonight.
I had Tin Fang walk up to me while I was talking to someone else. Shout out to our friend Joe, who is here from the UK.
Nice.
Saw us on stream and actually found the shop and came to visit while he's in the Bay Area. So shout out to him. I was talking to him and Tin Fang comes up and he just kind of stands next to us. I'm like, oh, hey, what's up? Do you want to say something? He's like, oh, I'm just chilling.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, he's dialed in right here, and we are going to see turn 1 Sunken Ruin naming white, so this can potentially activate some of these land abilities. It fixes the mana base, of course, so Tin Fang with this probably has double blue or multiple blue in hand, and we're going to see right away from this series multiple Lotus Fields in hand, a strict proctor to stifle the triggers, and a rest in peace. So now David's in the he's in a tough spot here.
Wow, that's gonna be so hard to hit because what? Double Lotus Field here with the strict proctors be pretty brutal, but this rest in peace can just take away the game completely. So we're actually gonna take the rest in peace here.
I think you have to.
You have to, right? Because I don't think there's not much enchantment removal for David here.
I don't think you're bringing in Terra Sunders. You have Bitter Triumphs. I mean, David with a Duress now in hand too means that you're just one land too slow on the draw. So Tin Fang is going to be able to kind of stifle his own Lotus Field trigger here. He has multiple in hand, so he can very quickly jump up to 8 mana. But the one thing that David did notice from this Thoughtseize is there's not a lot of action on his side, and with this Bitter Triumph in David's hand, this is actually going to stop the strict proctor plan entirely. So one of the very few removal spells that David probably kept in is coming in clutch here.
Oh yeah. So take me down, draws this card for turn. We're going down to 16. Play Hollow Fountain go here. I might have an Impulse in hand, but oh my god, another Thoughtseize from David.
Yeah, this is just a huge draw from David here. So we're going to line up with a Rafine's Informant. We're going to find our third land. We're going to play either Duress or Thoughtseize, take away whatever Tin Fang has left in hand. And if he doesn't have anything but those Lotus Fields, Tin Fang has to top deck in order to come back in this game.
Well, luckily, the Lotus control deck top decks decently well.
Ooh, there's no black mana. He
No.
pitched it to the Bitter Triumph, so he's not able to cast any of those discard effects. And more importantly, he can't double discard effect if Tin Fang has multiple things in hand now.
We could top deck another Naya land here. Not what you want to see here, but only one black source is actually kind of hurting David here.
He actually looked like he got rid of the Duress as well from the Rafine's Informant trigger. So that's just going to be only Thoughtseize in hand now. So basically kind of figuring like, oh, well, I think you don't have multiple things in hand. I saw your one card. So just going to be attacking and walks into a Wandering Emperor with Thoughtseize in hand.
No. So we're going to swing in first before the Thoughtseize, which is most of the time pretty fine here. But now I think this is going to, what, is it plus or no, it's a minus block of the Samurai.
Make a Samurai block. He doesn't need to put the Wandering Emperor down in one loyalty range for this. So this is a little bit of a blunder from David's side. You had multiple discard spells in hand. You choose to get rid of one and not play the other one. And you saw that you answered your opponent's opening hand brilliantly. But then the follow-up was fumbled, and now Tin Fang has stabilized because you have a Greasefang in hand, but no vehicles in graveyard from David.
Oh man, this is what you not want to see, especially from David's side. Like, seeing the one issue actually hurts a lot here because David now isn't going to probably hardcast a Greasefang here for no value.
No, I think this is on. Yeah, I guess it's still on his turn. So yeah, just going to cast a Greasefang and have that available. So now one thing that David can do is if he tops deck a vehicle, he can Thoughtseize himself.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
And put the vehicle in the graveyard and then hope that Tin Fang doesn't have interaction. But this is, again, hoping that Tin Fang doesn't have interaction, and then you can't use that Thoughtseize to clear the way for yourself.
Oh, so we're actually, wow. So we're going to have Lotus Field come in. We're going to use the use the Sunken Citadel to activate the Thespian to copy the Lotus Field with the Flight Man and taking, while we're sacrificing the Citadel with the Hollow Fountain, which is pretty good value, you would say.
Pretty solid. You just went up to 7 mana because you have 2 Lotus Fields now, and the downside of sacrificing 2 lands was mitigated by going up 1 from copying the Lotus Field with the Thespian stage.
I think Dave is debating playing the Takanuma on main step here.
I mean, Takanuma is a way to mill a vehicle into the graveyard, and with only 1 mana face up from Tin Fang's side, now is the time to have to make this sort of catch-up desperation play. Greasefang reduces this by 1, but you are only going to be milling 3. That's a lot of lands. So you are able to potentially get back... You should be able to get back this Rafine's Inform, but David, I guess, thinking it's Grizzly Salvage, thinking it's something like that.
Yeah, potentially.
Just going to decline getting the Rafine's Informant back. Most importantly, doesn't have a follow-up land as well, so you couldn't even play land and that Rafine's Informant.
Oh, man.
Because that would also be, okay, I could get the Rafine's Informant. If I have a land, I play Rafine's Informant, I connive, so I have another look at a vehicle, but David just might be a little bit on tilt right now.
So we're going to attack with the Hall of the Storm Giants here. Go down to 7 for David. And we're going to pass go here.
This is pretty safe for Tin Fang, too. He thinks he's in the aggressive seat now because even if you have Parhelion from David's side, that's only 13 damage. And Tin Fang is at 20. And then the Angels will stick around, but any number of removal spells deals with those. The Hall of Storm Giants is larger and is threatening lethal in and of itself right now.
We're going to cast Thoughtseize here
on himself. Yeah, so this is the play I was talking about. So now you wind up having David down to 5. You Thoughtseize your own Parhelion. Tin Fang did reveal a March of Otherworldly Light, so he's pretty set on staying alive at this point. But there are 2 Angel tokens coming into play now, so you can march one of them. Greasefang, if there's a second Thoughtseize in David's hand, so Greasefang can bring back Parhelion again next turn. So now Tin Fang all of a sudden needs to have a board wipe. That Farewell looks really good here, though.
Oh, yeah. Farewell would be really nice here, especially if he draws on top. But sadly, Tin Fang has another Lotus Field from what I saw. This is... Let's see. So we're going to actually declare attacks now.
This, is like, okay, David probably has to block here. Even if he loses his Angels, like, there's nothing that's going to, like, really change that with a block here. There's the Farewell.
Oh, there it is. Well,
so this is the exact card that Tin Fang needs in this scenario, because this is going to exile the graveyard, exile Greasefang, get absolutely everything off the battlefield, and just leave David with Thoughtseize, Parhelion, 1 black mana.
Oh, great. And we have a Strict Proctor into another Lotus Field on the same turn.
David needs to present a blocker or a removal spell for this Hall of Storm Giants, or he's just dead.
Oh, yeah. So look at this. 3, 6, 9. Oh, 10 mana there.
David just goes, damn.
Damn. Damn. Too much mana. Strict Proctor and Hall of Storm Giants out with Tin Fang only 1 card in land here. So we're going to play a...
Yeah, so this was like the exact play that David could have made if he did not pitch that Godless Shrine on turn 2 or whatever. So he has Greasefang, but he can't Thoughtseize himself to get Parhelion back, and he's probably going to lose the game.
So we're gonna animate the Hall of Storm Giants. We're gonna block it. We're gonna get on the 4 here. 4 for David.
All right, we got 4 Lotus Fields. Why not?
Yeah, screw 4 Lotus Fields here. I think also a Tail's End on Tin Fang's side, so we can just counter another Greasefang if it comes out.
I mean, Greasefang doesn't even really do anything here.
No,
black mana means that you can't Greasefang yourself.
Thoughtseize now. Go down to 2, and I think Tin Fang took this game pretty well. Both players cleaning up here. Tin Fang taking game number 2 here. Our first game 3 of the night.
Yeah, so game number 3 for the first time on stream this night. That's always exciting to see. And David might be kicking himself a little bit for the sequencing on that game. You see him kind of like sighing very deeply there, as he knew that there were multiple chances he had to win that game if he had the second block mana, which he did wind up pitching to that Bitter Triumph to get rid of the Strict Proctor. Because let's remember, for anybody who might be tuning in late or just scrubbing through the VOD or something like that, David saw that Tin Fang had Strict Proctor plus Rest in Peace in hand and was on the draw. David Thoughtseizes, takes the Rest in Peace. Tin Fang plays Strict Proctor with double Lotus Field in hand. David has Bitter Triumph. Now, David decides to pitch a land instead of pitching any other card or paying 3 life against a deck that is probably not going to kill you very aggressively. Pitching the Godless Shrine meant that when David top decks Duress and Thoughtseize in the following turns, he can't strip Tin Fang's hand, he can't play multiple cards and play a backup hand disruption to protect the Greasefang from any sort of threat, and winds up walking into a Wandering Emperor that helps Tin Fang, even though the game got grindy, help Tin Fang stabilize from a point where he could have been dead on turn 4 or 5.
Yeah, I mean, the small decisions like that can really hurt you in the long run, especially in this. It's very such we saw in the last game here, where that second black mana just really did not enable the David to play his hand out.
Most of the time when you discard a card to Bitter Triumph in the Greasefang deck, you're discarding a Parhelion or something.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're discarding the card you want to reanimate. But now, fresh mindset, David can just kind of put that one in the past. This is game number 3. This is for the 3rd pack here at Pioneer Tuesday. David now wants to kind of sequence again. Has a turn 1 discard spell. Reveal. Tin Fang, is that all lands Memory Deluge? Okay, and discontinuity. Okay.
Wow.
So you're taking a discontinuity here because you don't want those Lotus Fields to hit the battlefield. But David on the play, this sequence of discard spell. Oh, okay. So Memory Deluge hits. So this to me is signaling that David has a way to combo on turn 3. Because if you are Tin Fang, you can Lotus Field on your turn 3, but David can potentially combo on his turn 3 on the play.
I see. So I think is that another one? I keep forgetting the name of this.
That's a Witherbloom command. So this is mill 3, get a land back. You can destroy a permanent, mana cost 1 or less. You can give something -3, -1, or drain somebody for 2. So this is going to mill 3, finds a ton of targets for a potential Greasefang, and drains Tin Fang for 2.
Wow, so now we're just wait all the time ready to go. I mean, it'd be pretty good to have a Greasefang here, but I don't think David does here. Kind of kicking himself in the foot there.
Like, white source Greasefang is just lights out, but there's no white source, so even with a Greasefang, David can't do anything.
Tin Fang gets to draw a card here, play the Lotus Field out, float mana.
Discontinuity.
Woo.
So this is a sequence from the Lotus deck that we absolutely are familiar with. This is going to jump him up to 5 mana, 6 next turn. We find the white source. Tin Fang is tapped out. Do we have the Greasefang? David's tapping 2. That doesn't signal Greasefang.
Does not look like Greasefang at all here. So we're going to draw a card from there, discard
so many vehicles.
Oh my god. A Greasefang here would be lights out for sure. But, so we're going to lose a life, go down to 21 here. Pass the turn here. Tin Fang now. Keeping a hand over this, like, the top of the deck as well.
That's solid. Very hero dominaria. Might be the hero of Tin Fang's game here. Just gets to untap a Lotus Field, gets to draw additional cards. We know that Tin Fang has the 2 cards revealed face up from the turn 1 Duress, but has, I think, 3 cards left in hand in addition to this. Still has a land drop to make. Teferi can potentially just untap this Lotus Field and something else to represent Settle the Wreckage or the fresh Memory Deluge from Tin Fang's side. He's gonna get out the energy counters, even though he has the mana counters he could use from a token box.
I think he's using those mana counters soon. That's fine. He's prepared to float some mana here and there, make a whole bunch of mana, and start going off with these Lotus
That's
Fields.
true. He does need to float mana at some point. So okay, we can forgive him for that.
Oh yeah.
But David now, again, an opportunity here to potentially just Greasefang and maybe win the game. So there's
Lively Dirge.
This is the Lively Dirge. If Tin Fang doesn't have a counterspell or doesn't have like a stifling effect here, you can find the Greasefang, put it in your graveyard, reanimate this Parhelion, but the 4 mana available from Tin Fang, and it's very likely with a grip full of cards that he doesn't have nothing.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's no way he doesn't have anything here. Hard to see what he has, but I did see Orloir here, so it's pretty relevant actually.
That'll bound. You probably want to wait for Greasefang to come back. You can reanimate or wait for the reanimation target from the Parhelion, bounce the Greasefang back to hand, or bounce the Parhelion in response to the crew. You have a bunch of different ways to do it. If you bounce the Parhelion, that's just representing like, okay, like you have to have a discard outlet now. And David, I don't know if he has one of those. He has a lot of mill things. There is an additional vehicles in the graveyard, so it's not the best tempo swing in the world, but it's just something that delays the deck that is trying to deal damage to you, and Tin Fang can just eventually win from there.
Oh, so we actually let the...
Yep, there we go.
There it is. So...
Yeah, that's what I was just talking about. The best play is probably to bounce the Parhelion and try to strand it in David's hand.
So we're going to attack here for 3 on Tin Fang himself, not on the Teferi. So I don't know what's exactly Tin Fang hand here, but...
No, even David saying, oh, maybe I should have attacked Teferi. Because Teferi going down to 3 is relevant because that means a second swing from the Rafine's Informant is killing off the Teferi, which means that Tin Fang then has to split his resources between potentially the Parhelion and saving Teferi.
Oh, yeah. So Tin Fang here thinking what to do for his turn here since David is also tapped out. So it is free reign on Tin Fang's side here.
Tin Fang has a lot of lands in hand, though. So the
Yeah.
Odawara was one of many lands that looked
Oh,
like.
actually, minus on the Greasefang.
This kind of signals that Tin Fang only has lands in hand, or something that he can't really interact with on David's side. Because we know that there's at least another Sky Sovereign in the graveyard. There may be another Parhelion. Sky Sovereign is
Yes.
the only one that I know of. So that means that Tin Fang is considering that that Sky Sovereign against Teferi is lethal damage with this Rafine's Informant.
So we're going to mill the 5 here, which we know about the 3's Fang.
Ooh, yeah, so we're going to get that one back. And, I mean, we could play this out now if we want to, even though it's post-combat. We did see the attack Teferi down to 2. We could play the Greasefang out and just hope that Tin Fang doesn't have board wipe. But it's more likely that we keep it in hand and then hope that he doesn't have counterspell the next turn.
It's a really rough decision for David here, especially since you're walking into so much mana here, asking how many cards are in your hand as well. So we're going to play a Greasefang out here.
David looks like he realized, oh, I knew that Greasefang was there. I should have waited to attack. And Tin Fang saying, oh, well, like, you've already gone through combat. We made game actions. You can't really walk that one back here from David's side.
So we're going to go down to... Where? Oh, are we rewinding a bit?
Oh, I guess, okay.
Okay. So we get the Sovereign
Oh,
here.
okay, no, this is, I don't know if this is pre-combat. Okay, this is pre-combat, because otherwise the Greasefang wouldn't have been able to get it back. So Tin Fang letting David walk this one back, kills off the Teferi, has to crew with one of these. If he crews the Greasefang, then the Sky Sovereign can attack.
So we're going to swing here.
Okay, so it looks like Tin Fang just played a land and passed, is what happened. So it wasn't an actual walk back of the turn. It was just Tin Fang played a land, passed the turn, didn't have anything to do, and is now just going to decide that I'm going to activate Hall of the Storm Giants. I'm going to trade off this Rafine's Informant. I am going to wind up taking a big 6 damage in the air from the boat, but we have Memory Deluge in our graveyard. We have Impulse in our hand. We have ways to kind of find some cards to deal with what David's going to be presenting.
Oh, here comes the floating mana that we were talking about earlier. So we're going to Impulse here. Look at the top 4. It looks like a Get Lost, Doven Veto. I don't know what the last card is.
2 Get Lost, 2 Dovin's Vetoes.
And we're not taking either of those.
Well, we're taking a Get Lost.
Oh, is it 2 Get Lost?
There's 2 Get Lost, 2 Dovin's
okay,
Vetoes.
well.
So you had to pick of the litter there. No matter what he picked, he was taking one. That's how cards work, actually.
So we play the Pathway here. We're going to probably use the Pathway and the floating mana. Oh, actually, we'll pass with the floating mana going away here. Duress from David. Might as well just cast it now.
Unfortunately, Duress is not one you can target yourself with.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So you won't be able to discard like a Parhelion in hand. However, this can potentially clear the way for Greasefang to go to combat. But we know that there's a Get Lost in Tin Fang's hand, so Tin Fang can respond and get the Greasefang.
Tin Fang looking through the graveyard here. Let's see what he's going to do here.
So those are the 2 cards that David is revealing, because those are the ones that Tin Fang knows have been bounced back to his hand. And then realizing, okay, there is a Sky Sovereign in the graveyard on the top that was milled there. It was not the one that was their previous turn. So just representing the game state so we know exactly which cards are in which zones currently. Now David, like we said, has to pull the trigger on this Duress, but we know that this is going to immediately get answered with a Get Lost on the Greasefang.
Duress comes out. Get Lost on the Greasefang here. You can get 2 maps now.
Is that a Selfless Savior in David's hand as well? Selfless Savior earlier on would have saved this Greasefang from the Get Lost. However, playing it on this turn wouldn't have really changed anything. And we see Tinfang just lands in hand. All right, we got Selfless Savior, and it's about to do some exploring here. Selfless Savior is going to try to carry this, but it finds us a land on the first one.
So, Selfish Savior from M21 here. Not really a card you see too often here.
I mean, this is just a card that David probably brought in. Maybe David was playing Amalia previously and had this to protect his Amalia from the combos.
Maybe.
But it unfortunately only found 2 lands, which means that David isn't going to be able to kind of find any value off the top of that or grow the Selfless Savior. But it does get rid of 2 dead draws from David's side.
So, looks like we might put Tinfang doing some math here.
I believe Tinfang still has that Memory Deluge that was
Yes.
discarded on turn 1, so maybe just doing some math here to see if he can main phase this and still keep up interaction, and that looks like that's what's going to be the plan.
Yeah, so we're going to deluge here. Look at the top 5?
7.
Sorry, top 7. Pick 2 from it. Man, such a tense moment here since David's basically kind of ran out of gas here. He doesn't have anything to do besides have the Selfish Savior. And Tinfang is trying to dig for answers. He's trying to accelerate his win con. Which is probably most likely just... Oh, Rest in Peace comes out instead actually from the... Wow, so...
That's a big hit here.
David do now?
I mean, at this point, David was basically hoping those map tokens made the Selfless Savior large enough so that he can just crew the Sky Sovereign he has in hand. If David doesn't have a good draw from the top of his deck, which Lively Dirge is no longer a good draw since the graveyard is going to be exiled as soon as something gets in there, you're probably just going to see him, hold on, 2, 4, 6. We could hard cast Parhelion at this point. So we can hard cast any of our vehicles. If we still have Asika's Chariots in our deck, that's probably the best top deck at this point. I don't know if David's on the Shieldred version of this deck as well. That would be a great top deck against Tinfang here. But we're just going to have Parhelion hit the battlefield, a Rafine's Informant, plus a Selfless Savior, as long as you connive away this artifact in your hand, could crew it and could be lethal.
Well, let's see what Tinfang has to say about that, as we're going to drop a Teferi Hero Dominaria here, plus draw a card. And, I mean, a Get Lost does get there. We're going to actually play another Lotus Field, sacrificing 2 lands we tap. So, what should I think? We're going to end step, we're going to untap.
So, Tinfang has a Gonjo in hand. But if we do have that Rafine's Informant play or another 3-power creature from David's side...
We have a discontinuity.
Okay, so discontinuity on David's turn will just basically time walk him. So Tinfang has the ability to then go back to his turn and untap and find more answers. But again, David right here, Grizzly Salvage gets around Rest in Peace. It looks at the top 5, you take 1 and then put the rest in your graveyard. Ooh, unfortunately, you can't take that. You can't take the artifact, the vehicle, but you can take this Sentinel of the Lost City, or you can take the Greasefang. So that means now that Greasefang can come down and crew this Parhelion, but it's probably going to be met with discontinuity on the stack, which will exile the Greasefang.
So Greasefang will get exiled on the stack here, and David's turn completely. And we're going to go past it, and think we're going to get another turn. Going back. Draw a card. We're going to plus Teferi, get another card draw. So I'm trying to think. Tinfang should try to find a way to just swing with this whole Storm Giants while trying to lock out David at the same time.
So we can tap 2 Lotus Field and 1 other mana to activate the Hall of Storm Giants and swing, and then Teferi will untap the 2 Lotus Fields. However, we also need to kind of think, like, is there a way that we need to play defense with this Hall? There are no hasty ground threats from David's side, but if David has removal spell or something, that would be something that you have to be very, very concerned with on Tinfang's side. We do know that the Hall of Storm Giants has Ward 3, so a removal spell right now is not possible. But we need to see if Tinfang feels confident that he is the aggressor.
Oh, it looks like our overhead camera did turn off here for a moment. So, just 1 moment.
Battery really quick.
I think we're... 1 sec. It looks like Tom's out there just using the camera for a bit. This sometimes happens, but the thing about the battery has been dying pretty quickly today, so a little bit unusual battery usage than usual. We'll be a little bit technical difficulties, but we'll be back in the gameplay pretty shortly. All right, and we are back into the game here.
So what we wound up missing as I was struggling to change the battery was Tinfang casting a Farewell, which did a lot of damage to David there.
One moment.
Oh yeah, it's up. 3 gold of point. Anime Hall single white float. Double white floating. No more mana float.
So as we are fixing the battery situation with the camera, we were able to still continue to hear the players as they were playing, and we did wind up seeing that there was a Sky Sovereign that was cast from the side of David Lee. The Strict Proctor, however, was a play here to kind of just generate more advantage from Tinfang's side to kind of disrupt any of these effects that were going to be happening from Tinfang's Lotus Fields or anything, but now Tinfang has basically turned the corner and has become the aggressor on this side, swinging in with the Hall of Storm Giants and just not really afraid of anything David could do after farewelling away David's graveyard and wiping the board entirely. You can see Kyle and Eric making sure that the cables are plugged into the camera so that we can maintain video coverage for the remainder of this game. We see David head in hands, unfortunately. This game looked so good at so many points in time for him, but just unfortunately wasn't able to really turn the corner.
All right, back about that. We're fixing the camera situation here. So we're coming back to see there's a second rest in peace. Can you catch up a little bit, Tom, on what was happening?
Second rest in peace. There's a Strict Proctor to hit the battlefield to work as a blocker if we need to, which meant that Tinfang turned the corner and felt he was confident enough to start attacking with this Hall of Storm Giants. But Boseiju on Hall of Storm Giants, when that's not a creature, that doesn't have ward, so that gets rid of the face-up win condition from Tinfang's side. So David still kind of fighting here. That should be an exiled Boseiju, but still has a Parhelion and a blank in hand pretty much. So trying to find creatures to crew the Sky Sovereign, punch through the Strict Proctor with the activated ability, paying 2, of course, because Strict Proctor will counter that if you don't, and then needing to try to find 2 additional damage on Tinfang.
Wow, so it looks like we're going to have a meticulous archive being played. You're paying the 2 for it because of Strict Proctor. Let's try to set up the top of the library a little bit better here for Tinfang's side.
Yeah, because at this point, Tinfang needs to find a way to win, pretty much. Like, Strict Proctor swinging him for 1 isn't the way.
It's a way, though.
Maybe untapping and getting to Fairy to Ultimate is the closest that we have face up right now, but Tinfang needs to find... I say if there's a Wandering Emperor, that's like the best card Tinfang could find right now.
Looks like it is a Wandering Emperor. I'm pretty sure. I did see a little bit of Planeswalker symbol here, but we're going to now swing it for 1. We're on the Strict Proctor beats here, so... for the turn is not too bad.
All right, so we have Grizzly Salvage from David Lee. We're probably main phasing this to try to find a creature.
So we're gonna tap our.
We need to tap green-black. So looks like David is just trying to suss out which lands he wants to activate here, or wants to tap to activate for mana.
I mean, especially happening in game 2, but it shouldn't really matter too much here.
All right, so we have Greasefang, and we have Rafine's Informant. So these are both things that can crew the Sky Sovereign, which means that we do have a way to kill Teferi if there's no removal spell in Tin Fang's hand.
Unfortunately, I think there is probably most likely a removal spell, but we're gonna play out the Greasefang here. And the response for Ting Fang, says that it resolves. Go to combat. We're gonna. Oh, David also.
That's an Aganjo that's been phased
Aganjo.
up for a while, so
Yeah.
that will deal 4 damage to an attacking or blocking creature, not a tapped creature, just making sure that Greasefang won't die.
So we're gonna go back to beginning combat here. We're gonna get lost to Sky Sovereign here.
So Sky Sovereign gets lost. That does create 2 map tokens, which means that if David can find 2 non-lands for this Greasefang, it gets out of the range of the Aganjo. But David knows that he's running low on things in his deck to actually attack with at some point. I think this is the 3rd Greasefang. We got rid of another Rafine's Informant, which I think was the 3rd one as well. There was 1 Sentinel of the Lost City that we saw get milled away before as well.
Ooh. It looks like a Wandering Emperor gonna come out here.
All right, so just exiling the type Greasefang as well. So now David, do we see what David kept on top from the Explorer?
We did
Or was that a
not.
land?
I don't think so. I don't think
Oh, it was in respawn, so
Yes.
there was no target, so then you couldn't actually see what was flipped.
So I think we can go up to 10 here. We're still on the strict proctor beats as of now, but there's no board state for David to work with here.
The Strict Proctor beatdown, though, is strictly better with this Wandering
Oh, yeah.
Emperor on the battlefield, giving it counters.
Looks like this is that Memory Deluge, and I'll get lost in the hand of Ting Fang here.
Is that Get Lost is basically an answer to anything that David is going to be able to present on the battlefield. The Memory Deluge just means that Tin Fang can restock his hand and have basically a plethora of answers to anything David can potentially present. This is the difficulty of going long with a deck like Greasefang. Even with more disruption and a bit more of a mid-rangey plan against the control deck, a couple of fumbles, a couple of missteps can result into a board state where Tin Fang is just able to stabilize like this, able to start pulling away at the game. And even though we thought David had ways to get through some of these defense protocols from Tin Fang's side, it just wasn't enough.
I mean, stabilize. Ting Fang is a pretty much of a classic here. It might be his middle name at this point. We're gonna cast Memory Deluge. Look at the top 7. Get the next 2 here. It looks like we saw a Get Lost as well. I think Ting Fang tried to look for the discontinuity to maybe really say it's lights out after all, but
I mean, Tin Fang still has a combat step, so
Oh, yeah.
2 damage here, it'll be 3 damage next turn. So this is a 3-turn clock that Tin Fang's presenting with this +1/+1 counter from the Wandering Emperor. You could minus make a Samurai, doesn't really change the math all too much there. It'd be 2 damage next turn and then 4 the following turn, +1 for 5, so you still have a 3-turn clock after this. But David, Asika's Chariot. Okay, that's one of the few things left in his deck that not only represents 2 creatures but can attack. And Dovin's Veto does hit this as it is a vehicle, so it's an artifact on the stack.
now David has nothing else to do. Spars is pass go here. Not too sure. I mean, David's smiling about this. Ting Fang doing some combat math here. Trying to calculate how many more turns does he have on this.
I mean, David has Parhelion, and I forget what the other card was in his hand. I don't think it's still the Sky Sovereign, unless we probably would have seen that coming down to take out the Wandering Emperor. But here we go, Wandering Emperor. Ooh, ticking down, making a Samurai. So, like I said, doesn't really change the combat math as much for Tin Fang here, whether he keeps plussing the Strict Proctor or minusing to make Samurai.
This signals that he does have discontinuity.
I don't think it matters what Tin Fang has at this point. I'm pretty sure as long as he has a removal spell, David's dead.
So we're gonna swing here with the Strict Proctor, go down to 6. Yeah, it looks like the Deluge with discontinuity. So actually we'll put the Thespian stage. Copy Lotus Field. Untap. We have a lot of mana open here.
12, 14, 16, 18, 19 mana?
We're gonna top deck a Parhealing. We're gonna play out the Parhealing here.
Right, so Parhelion gets played. Tinfang is technically going to be turn 1 here in turns. We can hear the timer going off. But Samurai and Strict Proctor is 2/2s. Parhelion with no way to crew it to block. I think Tinfang's pretty set here.
Yeah, so we're gonna end up play Deluge here, just for 2 Lotus Fields. Pretty nice. Gonna look at the top 7.
Oh, this is only top 4, right?
Top 4,
Because
yeah,
from
yeah.
hand.
Yes, top 4, not top 7. Go to his turn 1.
I mean, Tinfang can, if he really wants to, just get lost to this Parhelion, and then David has no top decks to save him whatsoever.
Oh,
If he
yeah.
has a get lost, he can get lost whatever David
Is that
plays.
Tishana Tidebinder? Wow.
Tidebinder's also really solid. You can just stop the crew.
Oh yeah, it's just gonna stop in general. We're gonna plus here on the Teferi. Play out Hollow Star Giants. Probably what, swing, discontinuity, go to your turn, swing for lethal. So we're gonna swing here. Gonna go down to 2. Or sorry,
This is under 1, because this is 5 damage now with the Strict Proctor on 3. Looks like the app on the iPad, if you wind up accidentally going down to 0 now, instead of being at 0, it says, congratulations, you've won. So the players are just fixing that at this point.
Wow. I think Tinkerman might hit 1 too many going down the 9 onto it, but
Yeah, I think Tinfang's still at 10 and David's at 1, so we'll keep that up here. But now, like you said, if Tinfang has discontinuity, it's just going to go to David's
oh,
turn.
we're
It's
copy,
going to end.
we're
and-
copying all the Storm Giants with the Thespian stage. So 15 damage on board, pretty nice. But is there really a top deck that David has to get out? No.
No, I mean,
Oh, Chariot though.
so playing Chariot, Crew's Parhelion,
Uh-oh.
but we have Tishana's Tidebinder to deal with the crew trigger. If there's still that Get Lost in hand, the Get Lost is still there. That deals with everything, so Tinfang has his game all locked up. It's just the
Tishana
long
Tidebinder.
game favors the control deck, and this is like a tale as old as time when you play mid-range versus control. You can bring in all the disruption effects in the world that you really want to, but if you don't have a proactive plan on board, you're not able to end the game fast enough.
So we are going to tie mine the... Oh, sorry. We're rolling it back a bit since...
Okay, so I have to pay 2 for this?
Yes.
Yeah, see, he has to pay 2 in order to get the cats. So with the trigger on the stack, there's the trigger from Strict Proctor. That means
Yes.
that David will have to pay 2, and now Tinfang is going to Tishana's Tidebinder,
Pay the 2.
trigger on the stack from Strict Proctor, pay the 2 to stifle the effect that David paid 5 mana, or paid 6 mana for total. Just in case David has some sort of other spell that he could play in his hand.
To kill myself?
All right, and he taps the Pain Land to kill himself, so that's going to be Tinfang.
Taking game number 3 here on the typical Azorius Lotus here that he is, monopolizing the stream setup as people say in the store.